Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Welcome to those in this space. For those that can't see this beautiful, amazing space, it's just so warm in here. I'm Myra Herring. I am a friend, a dear friend, and earth angel and sister of Leilani Mañulu. And we're here for the book release, Paradox of the Water Bearer, which Leilani just released. We're so excited. We're happy that you're here. We welcome you to this space. It's going to be an amazing event this evening. So welcome, get comfortable, get your tea, find your spot, cozy up. We'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions when you're ready for that. So you'll get to hear some reading. You'll get to hear from Leilani herself, her vision behind the book. You'll get to hear from some amazing people. I'm about to introduce you to one other amazing person that's on this couch with me. So I hope that you're ready for an amazing evening. You're here for a reason, so get ready. And without further ado, I will hand it over to my beautiful co-host, Anika, who will introduce herself and lead us in a grounding.
Thank you, Myra.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight for Leilani's book release. I'm so excited. My name is Anika Apple, and I could not be more ecstatic about seeing my Earth Angel sister release this book, The Paradox of the Water Bearer. You should be right now on your phone, on Amazon, ordering your copy, hint, hint.
Yes.
But it is phenomenal, and I'm so excited that you are joining us today so that you can hear her share the reason behind the paradox of the water bearer. Before we get started and bring Leilani out to introduce herself to all of you, we want to just take a moment to reflect on why we're here. We all have an incredible purpose, and it is our expectation, it is the expectation of us that we deliver and live into that purpose. And so the work that Leilani is bringing forward will have the opportunity to influence, inspire, and encourage you to lean into your purpose, to lean into courage. What we'd love for you to do right now is to just take a moment, take a deep breath, close your eyes if you like, and release it. In this moment, allow the other thoughts in your mind to slide away. Another deep breath in. And as you release, bring yourself present to this moment. Another deep breath. And release. As you begin to hear the words tonight, let them penetrate your heart. Let them broaden your perspective and understanding. It is time for you to recognize your place in this world. And you're going to hear from our dear sister as she shares with you her place. We bring to you, without further ado, our sister, Leilani Mañulu.
Hi.
I'm so excited.
Just saw you. So glad you're here.
Oh my gosh. So, hi everybody. I'm so nervous. Can I say that? Am I allowed to say that?
You absolutely are.
I don't even know where to start.
Can I introduce you?
Yeah. I should have been paying attention when we were prepping
you're
for this.
You're
She was paying
good.
attention. Everything's fine. Our dear sister is a fellow Earth Angel. She's a mom, a sister, a daughter, a warrior. Leilani is a divine channel, and she has had her gifts for as long as she's had breath in her lungs. She is amazing, but her life has been an exploration of those gifts and her connectivity through Source. There is no one that I've met that is quite like her, and her connection and divinity just radiates, and you are going to have the opportunity to hear that today. So that is my dear sister.
Yes.
And we're so excited for you to tell us about the book.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Where to start? Thank you for that introduction. And thank you all for being here. Thank you all in the room for being here. I'm filled with gratitude. I can't even express like how incredible it feels to be so supported here in the human realm and in the spiritual realm. Of course, I did all the channeling today to try to get me to a space where I felt present. So thank you all for being here. This book has been wild. I have been wanting to write, or I should say I've been wanting to publish a book for as long as I could hold a pencil. The first time my first book I ever wrote, it was the summer before 3rd grade, and I wrote a 75-page book, and I begged the librarian to put it up in the library, which she did. She was a great sport. So if you can imagine, this has been a labor of love and a labor of believing that I'm worthy of putting my story forward. So everything that you said, Anika, in terms of purpose, it was about almost exactly a year ago where the book starts, and it's all about me just believing in myself and believing that my story matters, believing that my gifts matter, that I matter enough to blow my life up and leave a lot in my wake and not look back. And so this book is all about that. It's all about stepping into my purpose and remembering who I am and just hopefully showing others that it's possible. So.
And you have. Yeah. The people here in this space are the example of that. I'm the example of that. Myra's the example of that. Yes. So we're all grateful for you and leading the way.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Do you think we could read an excerpt from the book?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and then I would love to hear from you all. So do put in the comments if you have questions, like what the hell is a channel? What does it mean? We should probably explain that.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Let's explain that because I did notice a lot of like friends that I haven't heard from in like 20 years bought my book, and they're probably like, what is happening?
What happened?
What is happening right this moment? And so what my gifts and the way that they manifest is that I interpret messages from the spiritual realm, and I have for as long as I can remember, as Anika mentioned, and it started out as a child. I would like sense spirits, and I know that sounds really scary. It was actually as a kid, is like I could sense when there were spiritual energies around, and I like blocked it off until last year, like early last year, and I started hearing voices and getting messages. And there's this joke, as I scroll through Instagram and look up shamanism type stuff. There's like, am I actually losing my mind, or am I becoming a shaman? Am I a channel? Like, am I losing touch with reality, or am I just like living into my gifts? And I chose to live into my gifts, and so that's what it means. I see images, I get sensations, I get feelings, I hear words. Literally, the Uber ride over here. I'm just trying. I had my I am an extrovert, but like when I'm in like game mode, I'm like I have my AirPods in, and she was like, "So what do you do?" I never quite know how to answer that, but I was like, "I'm a shaman." Oh, what does that mean? And then I kind of went down, and then I reconnected her with her brother Daniel, who had passed away,
of course,
very suddenly, and he had all these messages for her, and that is literally my life.
Yes,
in the Uber.
In the Uber over here, she's crying. I'm like, be safe, like eyes on the road,
Oh my God!
And I think that when I consider the work that I am meant to do here, my big work is writing.
Yeah.
And I know that like my big work is writing, and for whatever reason, that is how the universe created me. And so this is my first of many, many books.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I am going to read an excerpt.
We're excited.
Did I cover it well enough?
You did well.
Okay.
You did very well.
So this is a chapter. I'm starting about halfway down. It's called Limitations, and just to kind of set the stage, I struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety, And at this particular point, I was still medicated, heavily medicated for my anxiety, but I had started like down this path where I was starting to like trust myself a little bit more, and like I wasn't having to like be so I was coming down on my meds, and I had just started like getting a lot of the messages flowing through. So this chapter is all about going to the river with my ex. You already know. With my ex and he was my partner at the time, and my son, and this is just something that we normally did, and I just started getting crippling anxiety because I was afraid my son was going to drown. So that was kind of like, and I also have trauma around drowning because my little brother drowned. And so it's about halfway through, and my guides are like talking to me, and so I'll just start. So breathe, my guides repeat. They're working overtime to help me stay grounded. I hold Finn tightly as I walk into the water, following the same path that Troy took as much as I can. This fear, this hypervigilance, it's a trauma response. Years and years of experiencing the world as unsafe helped create a little girl who eventually grew up to feel as though danger was always right around the corner. This hypervigilance was amplified by having a child, which constantly reminded me that I truly have control over nothing. It's terrifying and anxiety-inducing, and I'm feeling it full force right now. Suddenly, in my mind's eye, I see a flash of my little brother, Lawrence. He drowned in water much shallower than this. The sinking feeling hits my stomach hard, and I quicken my pace to get to the other side of the river. I sigh in relief as I finally emerge from the river and set Finn down, ensuring that I am between him and the river the entire time. This is torture. I'm so scared. Breathe, my guides respond. Troy is smiling, throwing rocks in the water. Come here, Finn, he says, and Finn starts running toward him. He gets closer and closer to the edge of the water, and I feel panic begin to rise again. Please be careful, I yell. I didn't mean to yell. It's just how it came out. Another flash of Lawrence. He's fine, Troy says back sharply. I pick up on his tone right away, and I sigh as I catch up to them. Sorry, this is just really freaking me out, I say. Because of Lawrence, it scares me. If Troy heard me, he doesn't show it. I sigh and continue to watch them. They are both happily throwing rocks into the river at this point. I notice that Finn is inching closer and closer to the water. It's okay, buddy, go ahead, Troy says, and Finn smiles up at him approvingly. He looks back at the water and continues to inch toward it. I don't like this, I yell, catching both of them off guard as their gazes snap to me. The water is getting really fast right there. He could get swept up so easily. You're not being careful. You're overreacting. I'm right here, Troy responds, seeming to be confused about my outburst. I would never let anything happen to him. I take a deep breath, willing my anxiety to dissipate. This is torture. You're safe. Your family is safe. Be here now, my guides respond. This is so hard. This is so hard. Why is this so hard? I thought I was healing. I feel as though I'm pleading for answers at this point. Be here now, they repeat. I close my eyes and sigh, bringing my face toward the sun again. I feel the warm rays on my skin and feel the anxiety begin to melt away as I inhale sharply, filling my lungs with fresh breath that quickly seems to make its way to every cell in my body. I want to be here, I say to myself as I imagine my anxiety dissipating and floating away. When I open my eyes, I see Finn happily splashing in the water, which is now up to his waist. Troy is on the other side of him, ensuring that he stands between him and the rest of the river. He's so free in the water, he loves it. And he can only be present to the extent that you allow him to be, they say. You must model it for him. He won't be able to be present otherwise. He will always look to you for safety. If you do not surrender to this present moment, neither will he. But my anxiety, I continue, it makes it so difficult. Your body will adjust. You must give it time, they reply. Be here now. Thank you, I say to them, my anxiety almost gone at this point. I take one more deep breath and run into the river to meet my boys.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. I was almost
like, it's vulnerable. It's very vulnerable.
It's. I think it's a really, as I'm reflecting on, so this is something that I can do is like go back to that moment. As you could see, like it started to come up for me again, and that's how I write my book. Like I actually journey back to, I call it channeled nonfiction because I'm journeying back to that moment and writing it as though I'm there.
What do you hope people take away from that experience, being that vulnerable, being that open, you know, having to relive and feel those emotions again? You know, that's a lot. What do you hope people take away from your writings?
I hope that people just feel that they can show up exactly as they are. I think I've been shamed a lot around like my depression and anxiety, and my big hope is that people feel safe to just exist in the world as they are. Because I don't know that I've always felt that way, you know?
Yeah.
And I hope that people can tell their story in a way that honors not just who they are, but their entire context. Like my good friend Adana, and that we talk about context a lot, and we are such complex beings, not just as humans, but as spiritual beings as well. And I think that what I really hope that people take away from my writing is that they're loved and that they're seen and that they get to tell their story, and I will very gladly hear it and accept them.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Do we want to take some questions from the audience?
Yes, I think we had.
I have a few
Okay.
from those here in the audience, but I want to remind those that are listening or watching to put questions in the comments because we'd love to hear from you. So I'll start with some of the questions here. Oh, this is a good one. And you may have touched on it a little bit, Leilani, but maybe you can expand. How did you find the courage to write and see this book through?
Good.
Oh, how did I find the courage? My friends in the room are laughing because they know that I'm a brave ass bitch that just basically does like whatever.
Yes.
It's funny. I think that people think of courage and don't see the fear that's still part of that process,
Talk about
right?
it.
I know every single person in here is so, so brave and has faced so many. I draw from the courage of my community. I see people doing things that are brave and taking chances and making choices, not despite the fear. I think that's where we get hung up is like, and I talk about this a little bit in the podcast that just dropped today. I think it dropped today. I didn't actually check it out yet because I was like getting glammed. But I talk a little bit about this and the role of fear, because I think it's really easy to assume that you see people do brave things and it's like, how are they not afraid? And I am very afraid a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I just spent most of my life like kind of closing my eyes and just plowing through the fear.
Yeah.
And I'm finally in a place now where I want to like sink into it. My good friend Nisa always reminding me like, what could it look like to just like kind of chill a little bit, chill out there and allow like whatever needs to come forward, because fear is a messenger, right? Fear tells us the parts of ourselves that need more love, right? And so
That's good.
when I talk about,
I got that one.
okay,
That one
got
sunk
it, dropped
in.
right there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, girl. But I think, where do I find the courage? It's like, I couldn't stay small anymore. When I think about like what courage actually means in this scenario, like I couldn't stay silent anymore because my story was like bursting out of me.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, in leaving, you know, a marriage, leaving a corporate life, leaving all of these things behind me, it's not because like I didn't have fear, it's because the risk, it was scarier for me to stay small and to keep my story inside. That felt scarier to me than actually this big scary
Yeah.
thing. It was
Yeah.
like weighing which is scarier, and it's like, okay, I gotta go for that one.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anika, did you
That was
want
a
to
good
add something?
question.
funny.
I know.
Yeah,
It's funny
I felt that
because
Anika needed to
we
add
were
something.
talking about this earlier today about when it's like the risk of what you're not stepping into
Yes.
outweighs the fear,
Absolutely.
right? And that's what I saw you go through with this.
And I think that we live in a culture where we have like become so comfortable staying in that fear.
Yeah.
Like staying small and being like, okay, well, and there's no judgment on that. It's not like I completely understand why somebody would stay in a situation that just didn't feel like there was a way out or whatever. There's no judgment. It's just that there's always choice. And that's something that we talked about very recently is like, what are the choices that are coming forward as you evaluate like the way you're living your life and what you're choosing to guide your life? Like what is guiding your life? And how can you make choices that honor what your divine spirit is telling you, screaming at you, hoping that you hear, which is like, you're enough. And you get to live a life that is like full and divine and rich and like savory and all of the things. You don't have to do any less than that. You get to choose, right?
Yeah. It's more than full because you have overflow and you get to pour all that out to all these people that get to read her book because they buy the book. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
I mean, it is on Amazon, but I also have a website.
Yes.
If you don't want to contribute to penis-shaped spaceships. Oh, I got salty for a sec.
It's all good. It's your book.
It is. What's your website?
ShamanLeilani.com.
ShamanLeilani.com, right?
Excellent.
There you go.
Yes.
I have
Thank
another
you.
question.
Okay.
Okay. This release is both a death and a birth and can be tough to embrace. What was the hardest part of the journey and what was the sweetest? This question.
Okay, you're
Ooh,
gonna
I
have to
love
repeat
it.
that because that's a meaty question. I wish I would have gotten these.
that question
I
came from.
love it.
Is that you?
No, it's someone amazing in this audience.
No.
This
Oh, that's
release
nice.
is both a death and a birth. So that's part one and can be tough to embrace. What was the hardest part of the journey and what was the sweetest?
Such a good question.
I see that question on like layers. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what was the hardest part of writing the book? And also what was the hardest part of like this story that I'm telling, like this
We want to know it all.
journey?
Yeah.
So
Let's go there.
yeah.
I think the hardest part about writing the book was it wasn't actually the writing, like it flowed through me. Like I definitely felt led by source in the universe as I was like journeying to these moments in time and writing from that perspective. I think what was the hardest about actually writing it was getting the words down and knowing how it was going to impact people who were part of the story. So when I think about a death and a rebirth, it wasn't just for me and my journey and like myself as a person. It was also about like relationships as they were because things have changed, right? Like my mom, who I love so much, was a huge part of this story and my healing that went along with it. And I knew as I was writing parts of it, I would be like crying because I'm like, this is going to hurt her specifically. And again, it really tugged at me of like, okay, I'm channeling messages. It's coming through me. I am like an instrument for whatever higher power is like telling, wanting this story to be on paper. And I know that in this human realm, there's going to be, I talk a lot about destruction in my book, and I feel like there's going to be destruction and there's going to be something left in my wake. And it was true. It did impact people in my family too, and it's something that I feel like really sad and conflicted about. And I also am like, that's me trusting my path and my journey. And so, and then on a soul level, on a human level, like the hardest part, again, like I don't know why it's coming to destruction, probably because actually birthing this book is like the being reborn, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is, I've heard from Source so many times today, like your life begins today, like the rest of your life begins today. And so it makes sense to me that as I'm reflecting on the process of writing it, it was like I actually saw like structures crumbling, like relationships crumbling. And as much as I want to keep some of those structures intact, like I knew they had to come down. And it's hard. It's probably the hardest part about being an earth angel and being like a divine spirit in human form, is like seeing the consequences of like being led by spirit or being led by the universe. It's hard. The paradox, that's the paradox.
There it is.
Full circle.
So the thing that I'm curious about is whether or not you believe that you can truly heal if you don't tell your story.
Oh gosh. They're not giving me the answers, so I think this has got to come from me. No. Because I think that and again, like telling your story can mean so many things. I guess I hear owning your story. Because I think that I spent a lot of my life hiding my story and hiding a lot of the parts of my story that were hard for, to come through and to come to light. And even though I have a tremendous support system, and I have people in my life who knew those kind of like shadow parts of my story, I don't know that I could have owned it fully without putting it out there in this way, because that is how my gift manifests. I do think that Brene Brown, she's our bestie, but she talks about, you probably know the quote word for word about owning your story. I'm looking to Adana because she's our resident scholar. But Brene Brown talks about the fact that it's not until we own our story that we can release a lot of whatever is holding us back. The shame that's associated with like why do we keep parts of ourselves hidden? It's because we don't think they're worthy of being seen, that we don't think we're lovable if we allow ourselves to be seen by the world. So true. And so in that sense, I don't think that we can heal without owning our story. And book 2 is all about my process of like self-love, which you had a big hand in. Aww. Because, her big gift is beauty. Clearly. But like also seeing beauty in others, and like it was like having you on the podcast was like I was trying to like hide, because I'm like she's like she sees me as beautiful, and so like for me I guess I hear like I can't truly step into my wholeness in terms of like loving myself fully until I love all of those parts of myself that have been hidden in my story. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I do. I love it. It's
beautiful.
There is, and you kind of touched on this, the paradox part, but this question is, tell us about the book title. So maybe there's more, the water bearer, all of that.
Yeah, well, I am an Aquarius. That's not where it came from, but I know we were born like a day apart. No surprise. But so that's part of it. But when I think of water and what the role that, like anyone that follows my Instagram knows that I like need water in my life. That's where I was this morning. And so for me, water has been healing. And so when I think of myself as a water bearer, I think of like bringing healing into the world, bringing healing into my family, bringing healing to my son, bringing healing, hopefully in most spaces that I enter. And so that's the water bearer piece. And the paradox is just, again, like this tension of what I'm hearing come through is like water is neutral. Right? At its core, water is neutral. It can cause destruction and it can cause healing, but really at its core, it's neutral. And so that to me is the paradox, is like how we perceive the way that water is interacting with the world is actually it's just a perception. It's not actually, so I talk about like, I created so much destruction in my wake, and yet someone else can look at the same exact thing and say, but look at all the healing that brought. Like, not only for you, but like generational healing, and your mom is healing, and she is. And so that's really where it came from, is like, it's this paradox of like, and I think a lot of times we think paradox is like one or the other, but it's like, it's because it's all of it. Like, that's what I think of. It's all of it all at once.
The duality.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have any audience questions?
Oh, we
do
have.
have a few.
Okay.
Thank you.
And everyone,
dear.
this is, okay.
Right.
She's like,
I'm good. Do you want me to read them to you?
oh yeah.
Because you're
Yes.
you're a guest.
I was getting
It's
cozy.
okay.
Oh, here's one more.
Oh, more.
Oh, okay.
All right. So this is from the audience.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite chapter in your book?
Oh gosh, honestly, and this is the one I wanted to read, but I can't because I can't spoil it. But the second to last chapter is, it's where I face my biggest fear. Like, all-time biggest fear. Sources like, you ready? I'm like, okay. And it was just critical to me stepping through and stepping forward as the water bearer, like as an earth angel. I'm not going to spoil it, but that's my favorite chapter because it was all of it all at once. It was all of the paradox. It was all of everything about water. I get really excited about that chapter.
That's exciting. And they have to get the book to
You're
read
going to have
it.
to, I know,
Just
no
gonna have to get the
spoilers.
book.
You will want to read it.
Absolutely.
And Anika's reading it.
intense.
She's reading the audiobook. So,
And you can see why. Have you heard her voice?
like
Oh my
butter.
gosh, it is so beautiful.
Thank you.
So what's
Honored.
been your biggest learning or takeaway from this journey?
Oh, so many lessons.
I was going to say, give us 3.
Oh my gosh.
Let's do it.
Biggest learning. Well, from the publishing part, release control, surrender, because I like control. I love control. A lot of people would not guess that about me, but I really do. I have things, you know that. I have things, I want them a certain way. I want relationships to come through a certain way. It's a flaw. And so this publishing process was basically Source being like, I'm gonna need you to take a seat because I got this. To the point where like, today the book is ready. I mean, freaking out over here, control freak, right? And what was the question?
So any more lessons, biggest takeaways?
Biggest takeaways. Oh gosh. I'm thinking of my family who this book has impacted, and I think that just honoring the healing and honoring our stories, and knowing that I get worried, I get worried about like the impact of living this way, of being like, well, this was a Source-led decision. This is the universe like guiding me, because I've spent so much of my life catering to other people and being afraid of like losing connections and losing relationships. And And so I think another big lesson is trust, like trusting the universe and knowing that your people will still be there.
Yeah.
And your people will love you. And if they were not your people, it's sad. And it's also like, if we think about, again, this idea of like the paradox and water being neutral, it's like, you can see that like a relationship falling away as destruction, or you can see it as like, in my case with my ex, we are incredible friends.
Wow.
You know, like we just finalized our divorce this week, actually. And we are such good co-parents and such good friends. So how I interact with like what I perceive as destruction could actually be holistic and like generative. So letting go of like what something might mean and stepping into courage. And seeing the fear and saying like, I see you and I understand there are parts of me that I need to I want to learn to love, and like stepping forward and hoping that people understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay if they don't.
It's hard and it's okay.
It's hard and it's okay.
Yes.
Which part of the book was the hardest to write and why?
Oh my gosh. It was so easy to write. Is that okay to say?
That is great.
It was because
I love that.
I think that, and maybe that's what the hardest part was like trying to get my ass organized, thinking like it had to look a certain way. It wasn't until my writing coach, Sage, who is incredible, and if you want to know about Sage, you let me know. She grappled with me, like she was in the shit with me for like weeks, being like, why don't you want to write your outline? Like what is going on? Like what's in the way and this and that? And it was because I wasn't just like writing. Like my gift is just like let it flow. And I had like looked at all these ways that people did the writing the book thing and like how it's supposed to look. I literally wrote as I was going. My story didn't end until it ended. So I started my book in August of 2020. When I met Josette LeBlanc, who I know will be watching the replay, she's in chapter 1, and that's when I started writing this book. And then when the second chapter, when Source said, okay, it's time to write the second chapter about what just happened yesterday, I was like, all right. And I wrote the second chapter. And then I'd write the third chapter. And so it was like this really iterative thing that just like flowed through. So I think the hardest part was like letting go of what I thought it was supposed to be. Yeah. And like just writing my story as it happened. And then it like came together somehow, and I was like, well, shit, okay. It was nice.
That's beautiful. One of those questions was from Josette. Do you have a favorite chapter?
Hey, Josette.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Oh, there's another question.
Ooh. Okay, are we doing okay on time? I'm just going to do a quick time check. All right. So we have 2 more questions. One is, your book feels like a beautiful, loving fuck you to systems of oppression. Would you please speak to the connections?
Someone read it all the way through.
Right.
Check. Gold star. Yes.
I love it.
Sorry.
Yes.
I enjoyed reading this question. Would you?
I think we all enjoyed hearing it.
Would you please speak to the connections between stepping into our spiritual gifts and liberation?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Adana, can you just?
I didn't even finish. I didn't even give this question justice. Let me finish this. Yes. Stepping into our spiritual gifts and liberation-centered social justice work.
Not anti-racism.
So liberation.
Liberation-centered social justice work.
Let me gather myself after that question.
Do people know that you're the intuitive activist?
Oh, yes.
Do they know
Yeah,
that?
the intuitive
So
activist.
maybe we'll tie
So
that in.
this book is a giant fuck you to oppressive systems. Because oppressive systems would tell us to stay in line, to work your job, to focus on profit, to stay in your marriage, regardless of how you feel about it. And I even talk about, I write about George Floyd. That was like part of the story, was like, that was when my gifts like cracked open, because I feel like there's too much momentum from communities of color specifically where it's like, we are fucking tired of playing small.
That's right.
Like, no more, no mas, right? Like, we're done. And so for me, it was about just saying, okay, I have these spiritual gifts, which again, it's actually very oppressive for us to be like, oh, psychics are like a certain way, or like, what, an earth angel, that doesn't fit into my box of like how I understand this world or this capitalistic like culture that we live in. And so I think for me, as I think about like liberation, it's all about like me stepping into a space, telling my story, the whole story, and knowing that I'm lovable and that I'm worthy of connection and I'm worthy of belonging, not despite that, but because of that.
Absolutely.
Right? And so when I think of like all of the people who are going to read this book, I hope that it brings liberation. I hope that people look at it and say like, holy shit, like there's not just one way to live, that I get to choose how I manifest like my gifts in this life. I get to choose like the relationships that I engage in. I get to choose the work that I choose to do. That's, I mean, that's it, right?
You get to choose your authentic self.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
all of you.
And that is liberation.
Yes.
That
It
and that's a
is.
huge
So
fuck
good.
you
It
to,
is.
you know, oppression and
beautiful.
like this way that we've decided is like the normal way to be and the normal way to live.
It's beautiful.
I quit my job. I mean, I talk about it in the book, and it's like, I literally said like, the universe was like, take the voluntary layoff at work, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, well, what are you gonna do? Like what? And I had like a kind of a plan. It's like, ooh, well, I hope Adina's got something in mind, right? like I kind of had a plan, like we're gonna like do some things together. But at the end of the day, it was like, I don't know. And that's gotta be okay. We don't need to have a plan, and we don't have to like subscribe to the ways that things have always been done.
Yeah.
You talk about leaning into fear.
Yeah.
That is a huge
I know,
step.
that's something. You're
Yes. And we're so grateful that you did.
Yes.
So grateful.
Thank you.
Here's your final question. I hope I can read it. What has been the biggest gift you've received through this journey? I love ending with that question.
Oh my gosh.
So good. It's a great question.
It is.
Liberation.
Ooh.
I mean, it's feeling free. I spent so much of my life doing what everybody expected of me, and I opened myself up to like surrendering to the universe and just saying like, I'm yours. You know, like do with me what you may. And there is nothing more freeing. Like I literally in my mind am seeing shackles come off my arms and like my legs, and just being free. And again, it's not, I don't blame anybody for the life that I chose. Like that I chose a conventional life. Like
Yeah.
I chose to work a 9-to-5. I chose, you know, and I had wonderful people surrounding me, and I was trapped in this notion of what I thought my life was supposed to look like. I feel like we need to catch up, because like there's something happening over here.
Definitely something over there.
And so I think the biggest gift was liberation, but it was because I surrendered and I trusted the universe to guide me, and I trusted my own gifts to show me what that looks like as well. The divinity within. I had to trust it.
You are a gift. You are a gift.
Thank you.
I am hearing welcome home. That's what I'm hearing is welcome home.
When Josette when Josette did my DNA activation, that was what she envisioned, was all of my angels and guides, and they're basically, I rode in on a fucking white horse.
Yeah, you did.
Like, I was like, I'm here, you know, like, and that was what she had channeled, was like, that it brought her to tears. She said, like, for one of the first times in doing this process, and they said, welcome home.
There's things breaking open in this moment because of this work that you have brought forward.
Yeah.
So it's welcome home.
I'm glad. I mean, I feel like I would cry, but I'm just so joyful.
Which that makes me very happy.
Yes.
Like, it makes me really joyful to hear that again. When I heard it the first time, I was like, ooh. But I'm like, yeah, I bet you can ride in a white horse.
Yes, you
You
can.
know?
Yes, you can. You earned that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
And you're royal. You're wearing your purple.
Yes.
It is
I know.
so royal.
I don't wear purple,
You are royal.
and I needed to
Yeah.
wear purple.
It's an Aquarius color, so I mean.
Yeah, and like
beautiful.
higher.
Yes.
I'm looking at me, and like, isn't the crown chakra?
There you are.
I love you, ladies.
Yes,
Thank you
we
so
love
much.
You. Thank you.
So proud of you.
And
So
I'm
you want to
grateful.
share how people can find you, follow you? We
Yes.
talked about shamanleilani.com. So you got the website.
Yes.
You're on Amazon as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah, you can buy it in all the places. Go
Okay.
online, buy the book. It's like everywhere. Just search Paradox of the Water Bearer. And yeah, and I would love to hear from you all. Follow me on Instagram at Shaman Leilani. And I just can't wait to hear your stories.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the intuitive activist?
Oh, I have this podcast. Just wrapped up season 1, The Intuitive Activist.
It's beautiful.
Many of these women in the room have been on. And it is all about bringing channels, creatives, like spiritual beings in human form forward to talk about how to make our world better. So if you want to talk a little bit more about liberation and big FUs to oppression and oppressive systems, then go to The Intuitive Activist. And you can find that in all of the places that you listen to podcasts. So
And it's
it.
great. It's great.
Yeah.
I think Anika has our clothes.
We were going to spend a moment and just see if there was anything coming through from Source.
That's right. Well, Source has been here the whole time. To be real clear, like I think all of us, we're all channels here. But what is really, really strongly coming through is choose courage.
And I'm hearing it's a time to heal. That this is about us embracing, making the decision that it's okay to heal. And that does mean sharing and owning your story.
And that your liberation may require some destruction. And that's okay.
Oof. Thank you. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm about to go get something to drink and like relax finally.
You earned it, girl.
I've been I've been in prep mode all day, and I'm so grateful that you all tuned in. Thank you for being here.
We are grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you for this work. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We love you.
Yeah, we
I
do.
love you.
Thank you for being courageous, vulnerable, open. You've definitely touched me, and we can catch up on all the reasons. All the reasons, but thank you.
I love you.
Yes, love you. Thank you all for joining
Bye,
us.
everybody.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
Bye.
Yay!
We did it.